Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. Less than 2 weeks after it was introduced in the House of Commons, the Carney government's contentious Bill C-5 passed third reading in the Senate on Thursday and received royal assent the same day. The legislation has both its proponents and critics. APTN's Fraser Needham got some of that reaction on Friday.
Toronto Metropolitan University professor Pam Palmater had some strong words for both Prime Minister Mark Carney and the Liberal government.
I think the government has approached this entirely the wrong way, whether you're looking at it through a legal, economic, or social lens. I mean, this bill is clearly unconstitutional. I think it's violating a whole series of federal laws, including C-15, the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples.
At a press conference on Parliament Hill Friday, former Ontario NDP MP Charlie Angus also said the Prime Minister needs to do better.
I think he made a serious mistake in C-5 when you do not include Indigenous communities in the consultations, when you think you can override Indigenous rights. You're setting yourself up for failure. And I can tell you from coming and representing Treaty 9 for many years that the communities are not very pleased, and Mr. Carney is going to have to do better if he's going to do this in the long term.
The Liberals have insisted they need the One Canadian Economy Act to be law by July 1st in order to deal with the unprecedented threat of U.S. President Donald Trump and his tariffs. But a number of Indigenous groups have continued to say the legislation was passed without proper consultation. Manitoba Métis Federation President David Chartrand said his organization supports the law in principle, but they too have concerns.
The issue I did have of needing more clarity was to ensure that consultation still must take place. It must. There's got to be a dialogue that happens between us, the government and the proprietor and the partner and private sector. So that's going to be something that we anticipate they promise to be working throughout the summer with us. The second piece to that is this Indigenous Advisory Committee. I want to make sure, of course, the Red River is sitting on that board.
Carney has committed to full-day engagement sessions with Indigenous groups on the legislation, beginning with First Nations on July 17th. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Meanwhile, a small occupation at Queen's Park in Toronto continues in opposition to Ontario's Bill 5 and Ottawa's Bill C-5. The youth-led protest began just over 3 weeks ago, soon after Bill 5 was passed, which gives Ontario the power to create special economic zones. There has been widespread opposition from Indigenous and environmental groups to both bills. As you just heard, Bill C-5 passed in the Senate this week. Many oppose the bills, argue they have been fast-tracked and passed without consulting First Nations. Atreyu Lewis is from Batchewana First Nation. He says of the youth he's one of the youth occupying Queen's Park. He says opposition amongst Indigenous youth is growing.
I think the youth are very, very frustrated. I think we're all in a grieving process of what's to come and, how, because our families, our extended relations are going to be directly impacted. We do have communication with up north, youth up there working to protect the land on the front lines in Thunder Bay, Attawapiskat, Timmins, Sault Ste. Marie. So we are in consistent communication, and we do feel there's a lot of the people are getting ready, but there's definitely a lot of grief and a lot of feeling not knowing what to do next.
A Canadian senator who brought the chamber to a halt after appearing to faint has shared a message that he's feeling better.
Thank you very much. And
Senator Patrick Brazo posted, "For those interested, I am doing better. Thank you for the kind messages of support and well wishes. Be well, be happy." Manitoba's Accessibility and Gender Equality Minister is apologizing for comments made following an event in Winnipeg to congratulate women who had graduated from college and university programs. After making a speech to the grads and getting ready for a media scrum, Nahani Fontaine was recorded talking to an aide about the American Sign Language interpreter who shared the stage with her. She told her aide the interpreter was distracting her during her speech. Fontaine also said the interpreter should not have been on stage. Here is that exchange and a warning some foul language could be heard.
It was okay. I was thrown off. It wasn't great. But because the woman, she shouldn't have been on the stage. I couldn't see anybody on the side. And all I could see her was her frantic hand. Yeah. So I'm like, why did I on the stage? Jesus. I'm like, you need to relax.
Shortly after the story aired on our newscast earlier today, Fontaine provided an emailed apology to APTN News where she offered her sincere apologies to, quote, the deaf and hard of hearing community and to all Manitobans for my comments. Fontaine's emailed statement went on to say in part, quote, yesterday during a private debrief with my staff, I was reflecting on my public speaking performance and remarked I had been distracted by the interpreter's hand movements. I was expressing frustration on my own poor planning to ensure clear sight lines at the event. My comments did not acknowledge signing is not simply hand movements, but a full and rich language used by thousands of Manitobans every day. You can find more on this story on our website, aptnnews.ca. The federal court has approved a class action settlement for people who suffered abuse in Indian hospitals that were run by the federal government. First reported by the Canadian press, Canada's federal government ran 33 Indian hospitals for 45 years between 1936 to 1981. In 2018, former patients of those hospitals filed a lawsuit against the government, alleging they experienced multiple kinds of abuse and unfair treatment. Some victims also alleged they underwent multiple kinds of painful and life-altering tests against their will by medical staff. Representative plaintiff Ann Cecil also alleged that she and other patients were sexually abused multiple times by staff. The class action settlement is for people who suffered abuse and were admitted into an Indian hospital between 1936 and December of 1981. Claimants' compensation ranges from $10,000 to $200,000, depending on what level of abuse they experienced. Many of the patients settled out of court earlier this year. Canada is setting aside $150 million for a healing fund and $235.5 million for research and education on Indian hospitals. There's been a development in the forensic audit into the finances of the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations being conducted by Indigenous Services Canada and accounting firm KPMG.
Quoting anonymous sources, the PA Now News website in Saskatchewan is reporting that the audit is done and approximately $20 million could be unaccounted for. In an emailed statement to APTN National News, Indigenous Services spokesperson Pascal LaPlante said the department's assessment investigation branch is involved and appropriate action will be taken when required. LaPlante also wrote that, quote, the department does not comment on ongoing audits until they are final. Once a forensic audit is final, a summary of the findings will be published on the departmental website. We first learned of the audit early last year. At the time, ISC said that they had provided an estimated $141 million to the FSIN, dating back to April of 2019. Bobby Cameron has been chief of the FSIN, which represents 74 First Nations in Saskatchewan, since 2015. Cameron has yet to comment on the audit since it was announced. APTN will continue to follow this story.
Our Rachel May reporting there. Yukon has sworn in its new premier. That story and much more still to come. Welcome back. The Yukon's 11th premier was sworn in at the territorial legislature on Friday. Businessman Mike Pemberton was elected leader of the Yukon Liberal Party last week. The Yukon Liberals are in power, so that makes Pemberton premier of the territory. He succeeds former Premier Ranj Pele, who stepped down last month. Pemberton is a longtime Liberal supporter and has volunteered in several capacities, including president of the Yukon Community Crime Stoppers Association. He says his priorities include tackling the rising cost of living, the toxic drug crisis, and working with First Nations on new mineral legislation.
I will spend the next few months working with the team to get this work done. I will visit Yukon communities and hope I will have the opportunity to meet with leaders, with chiefs and council. We'll stay focused on the issues that matter most to Yukoners and keep moving forward with purpose.
Meanwhile, the territory will be heading into an election which must take place on or before November 3rd. An award-winning filmmaker out of British Columbia is showcasing her work this month on silver screens across Canada. APTN's Tina House has that story.
Award-winning filmmaker Jules Kostashian has been making films for decades now. Her latest films, Angela's Shadow and Nimisak, Sisters in Film, will be shown in theaters across Canada.
You know, just being around storytellers my whole life, living up in Northern Ontario with my grandparents and my mom and my aunties. You know, Crees, I think, are really fun storytellers. It does have an impact on you growing up, so it just feels very natural, second nature. I don't know, I just feel so compelled to tell really strong Indigenous stories that uplift us so that our young people can feel proud of who they are. And also I feel like our films, Indigenous cinema or Indigenous films, really provide context in terms of who we are as a people.
In Angela's Shadow, starring Renai Morisseau, Sarah Lise MacArthur, and Asava Kostashian, who is the son of Jules, a young couple embark on a trip to the childhood home of the wife, played by Sarah Lise MacArthur, to visit her childhood nanny, unlocking a past that she didn't remember.
Angela.
It's a film of resistance, paying homage to our matriarchs back in the day, our ancestors who fought to sustain language and culture, who had to go underground. And I always say we are who we are today because of them. So, you know, it's part of a trilogy as well. Broken Angel was the first film. Angela's Shadow is the second. Katawassassin is the third, which we're still in development with. And it follows the strong matriarchs in our lineage.
And in Nimisak, Sisters in Film documentary, filmmaker Jules Kostashian travels to Montreal to interview legendary filmmaker Alanis Obomsawin as they delve into the lives of Indigenous women storytellers. Kostashian has some advice for future filmmakers.
I always say, you know, if you have a cell phone, an iPad, put it in 4K and just start shooting, like just make your own films. I know big feature films have used iPhones, so whatever device that you have, just think through a story and then start filming, create a portfolio.
Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
The aspiring director and Indigenous music and film mogul, Matu Wayuhi, has hinted at a new era of music and collaborations. He caught up with us to share more about his new music video and how he's using media to empower Black and Indigenous youth in Pine Ridge, South Dakota. Veronica Blackhawk leaves us with one final story this summer with APTN News.
I do my own music, and then I do scoring for film and television, and then I also act and stuff. So kind of doing as much as I can right now in this lifetime.
Matu Wayuhi is the Oglala Lakota musician and multidisciplinary artist who's taken the Indigenous creative industry by storm. You may recognize him from on-screen appearances and the voice behind the soundtrack for Crave Originals' Reservation Dogs. Matteau embarks on new endeavors surrounded by community and a passion for Indigenous storytelling. He shares insight into his upcoming EP, Sundowner.
I had noticed a bit of a transformation in my sound maybe in the last year or so, and it's been because of two main utilities, one of which is learning bass guitar. Another portion of that was utilizing my voice from a lower register sense, because I have always been super insecure about how low my voice can go. And I think it's like gender dysmorphia.
The two-spirit artist reflects on interpersonal growth through musicianship. Matteau started out making hip-hop and R&B music, but after cross-collaborating into other genres, he's expanded horizons. KP, from the Swinomish, Washington-based indie rock group Black Belt Eagle Scout, is one of those co-creators.
The world is always in a weird place, and particularly right now. And I think the best thing that I can do as an artist is just bring these types of folks together, and all of us can just kind of hear each other and make things with each other.
As part of the release, the Sunroof song comes with a video, shot with a team of Indigenous creatives.
That was a great experience too, the video. I've directed all my own stuff. That one though it's the first time that the emotional resonance of the song has been so concurrent with the visuals. So it's so matched.
He shares his passion through an initiative called Outlast Arts Education, providing media literacy to underserved youth in Pine Ridge, South Dakota.
For generations and generations, we haven't been at the forefront of how our stories are told. We're just really passionate about ensuring that there can be the next generation of storytellers are accounted for.
You can hear Matteau's new music on all major streaming platforms. Veronica Blackhawk, APTN National News.
And a big thank you and congrats to Veronica and Angela Bello in Montreal for all their work here in recent months in partnership with Journalists for Human Rights. Wishing them all the best. Still to come tonight, 3 Indigenous teams will compete on the new season of the Amazing Race Canada. We'll speak with one of those teams after the break. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Christopher B. Clark was out on the waterways in Norway House Cree Nation territory. Here was the view passing along the 2-mile channel. Thanks for sharing, Christopher. This weekend, you should send us a picture of what you see to share at aptn.ca for the chance to be featured next week as our photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, showers and 19 in Fredericton, cloudy and 23 for Charlottetown. 23 in Kuujjuaq, 14 in Nain. Showers and 19 in Montreal, sun's out and 23 in Chibougamau. 23 in Sault Ste. Marie and North Bay, 21 with showers in Ottawa. 22 in Thunder Bay, sunny and 23 in Sioux Lookout. Cloudy and 19 in Churchill, 23 with cloud in the Pas. Showers and 27 in Winnipeg, 29 with rain in Dauphin. Sunny and 26 in Regina, cloudy and 25 in North Battleford. 24 with rain in Meadow Lake, sunny and 23 in La Ronge. In northern Alberta, cloudy and 21 in High Level, 22 with cloud in Fort Chipewyan. Showers and 23 in Edmonton, sunny and 24 in Lethbridge. Cloudy and 20 in Vancouver, 21 in Kamloops and Penticton. Sunny and 20 in Prince George, 19 with cloud in Smithers. 23 under sunny skies in Old Crow, sunny and 17 for Whitehorse. 22 under sunny skies in Yellowknife, 21 in Norman Wells. 12 in Sax Harbor, sunny and 17 in Pawlatuck. 18 and sunny in Baker Lake, cloudy and 8 in Arviette. 6 in Resolute, 16 in Joe Haven. The Amazing Race Canada is gearing up for its 11th season on CTV. And this year features 3 Indigenous teams competing for $250,000 and prizes. APTN's Chris Stewart spoke to one of the contestants, who is a well-known superfan who's vying for the top prize.
Yippee Scoo here. This is my husband, Superfan Magoo. This guy is one of the most competitive people I know and the love of my life.
Blair Gladue, probably more widely known as Superfan Magoo, a massive Edmonton Oilers fan, and his wife, actress Skylene, think they have what it takes to win the Amazing Race Canada. In the show, 11 teams of 2 travel across the country following clues to their next destination. It's been airing on CTV since 2013. Superfan Magoo says the competition was fierce.
The show is for real, man. Like, it's for real, and you're going, and there's no holds barred. It's for real, man. It's absolutely amazing, and you can start watching it on July 8th. That's when it starts airing.
Superfan says he was asked in the past to compete, but the Oilers' playoffs prevented him. He is at every home game where you can hear his drum is getting the Let's Go Oilers chant going. This year, he decided to miss the first 2 rounds to finally do the show.
So I said, okay, let's do it. But thankfully, we did it, and the first 2 rounds went by. We won the first 2 rounds, and I got back in time for the Dallas and Florida series.
I'm most excited. Joining Superfan Magoo are siblings Grace and Joe from Cheskin First Nation in BC, and the Rebeccas from Flying Dust First Nation in Saskatchewan and Pizeki First Nations in the Northwest Territories. Superfan said it was a blast having other Indigenous competitors.
Pretty awesome, man. Pretty amazing to see the Rebeccas on there, as well as Grace and Joe and Nippy and Magoo. You know, that was pretty cool to see, man. That was pretty cool. It was very emotional at times.
The new season starts on July 8th on CTV. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
Should be good. Well, it's the last Friday of June and a lot is happening. And that means a packed Nouvelle Nationale show tonight for our French viewers. Host Kim Sullivan tells us more. Kim?
Hey, Dennis, so many bills, so many laws, and so many reactions to them. Here in Quebec, we are still talking Bill 97 and the uproars around it. But now add to that yesterday's adoption of Bill C-5, and we have some pretty unhappy communities. There's also an issue of land claim for One Nation near Montreal, but we also have great news for a remote community finally getting access to local high school. Watch tonight, 6:30 Eastern. See you then.
Thanks, Kim. You can catch Kim in less than 2 minutes from now. Well, finally tonight, a family in Maple Ridge, British Columbia got quite a surprise when they found another family playing in their backyard. It was Mama Bear and her 2 cubs just enjoying some summer fun. One of the cubs is jumping to reach a tetherball as the other cub wrestles with Mom. The man behind this video says his wife told him some neighborhood kids were messing around in their yard. But when he went to have a word with them, he decided not to mess with Mom. And that's all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Friday, June the 27th. For much more, you can visit our website, aptnnews.ca, or visit our APTN News YouTube page. I'm Dennis Ward, Marcy Miigwech. Thanks for being with us. Stick around. Kim is up next with your French language news. Have a great night.